Alright, we've got 2 packages, and it almost seemed like this one wasn't going to be delivered. It came today, but the Postal Service delivered it at around 7:40 p.m., like an hour later than the latest they said it might be delivered. Which was a bit of a surprise, but you know, it showed up, so that's good. And then we've got this package. But yeah, this one was a little slower to ship because it came from Crunchyroll. I don't think I quite got this. That should be enough. Yeah, which is good because it means Crunchyroll has actually gotten a handful of things from me. That's a very familiar looking show. It's almost like I watched that a couple of seasons ago. So let's begin. Reborn as a vending machine. I know it's more than that. Blu-ray. Let's see. I see region A and B, so anybody, both is good. English, French, German, and Japanese dubs. So, really dubbed it. And it was okay. If there's more seasons, long term it could actually be potentially a great show, but you know, I think there's something a little off about it. Maybe, I guess, I'm not sure what. It definitely wasn't bad. It was better than I thought it would be, given that the main character is a vending machine. Next up, we have Oshi no Ko, which I do believe I already had season 1. But since I've been in the mood of collecting steelbooks, especially anime steelbooks, I went ahead and got this. Now, the only question is, where's the normal version of it? I don't know. I feel something kind of sticky there. Sticky might not be the right word. I guess before I go and look on the side, I don't remember how this compares to the other. Region A only, and... well, this would be high dive. Yeah, there we go. English and Japanese audio, so dub and sub options. There we go. Now there's the back in all its glory. Steel books are pretty nice. There's a good chance these are the same discs that were in the other one. Although, what is this even? Blu-ray extras. Duh. I was wondering if this could have been like a soundtrack, because if I remember the premise of this, it's a little bit idle-ish, although there's more to it than just that. Which almost made me wonder if it would have had songs, or could have had songs, but... I don't know. I guess it kind of feels like idols aren't really a song thing. I mean, I know they sing, but I think it's more of a performance thing. But I wouldn't go so, you know, maybe you take that with the grain of salt. Why Raeliana ended up at the Duke's Mansion. Blu-ray. Oh, different underneath the slipcover. I actually like this up because I like that cover for better, and this is a great under the slipcover sort of image. This one is, it was a pretty good show. A little strange for the second half, but still doing interesting things with the character. Did it end in a way where it's like I would want to see a second season? I suspect so, but I don't remember. Regions A and B, English, French, German, Japanese. So, great dub options. Good and importable. Nice. Nice. Alright. This is Pokemon Ultimate Journeys, the series, the complete season. And I think this one is highly notable because I've been asked about this by one of my... well, I guess I don't know if they're a subscriber. You know, I always kind of assume so, but at least one of my watchers. So, good news. As you can see, it's here. Okay, that does say DVD. I was just trying to wonder. It feels weird. maybe it's just I'm so used to seeing so many Blu-ray shaped or Blu-ray sized things. I don't know. Well, this is why I was kind of careful to open it, because I wanted to go through it nice and carefully. There's Surf-Etched Lucario. Fido, I think, was the unevolved form. Yeah, maybe. This is an entire... Wait, what generation is this? I mean, I think this is all Generation 8, except it wasn't Fido... Or is that not Fido? No, no, no! It's that electric dog thing! What the hell was that? Oh my god, I can't remember any of my Pokemon! Well, I mean, obviously I recognize Grookey. I think that's his... I know it's the Grookey line, at least. Well, with like, Gengar's cheating, Lucario's cheating, Eevee's cheating. Okay, Cinderace. I'm trying to remember his name because, man, he was a motherfucker. And not Dragapult. Dracovish. The best horror in the game. Is it only the one thing? Maybe it's only the one thing. Interesting. Well, that's Pokemon Ultimate Journeys. And maybe it just felt weird because it also feels stuff... I don't know. I must be forgetting the size of DVDs. Or this thing's taller than normal DVD. Oh well. And then last but not least, we have My Love Story with Yamada-Kun at level 999. You know, a show that I think I only watched the first episode of it. I just didn't like the fundamental premise, I guess. Like, some of the setup was maybe okay, and I wouldn't blame people who really liked that. But I just didn't care for it. I'm making a lie on the spot, go with my lie. It's like, no, please don't. Well, fortunately, it's just a show and I didn't watch it. But here it is. It's actually a pretty neat release. It would almost make me want to watch it. If it weren't for the fact that I've gotten other things that I want to watch and didn't watch, like a Tomo-chan as a girl. What in the world do I even have here? What are these? I don't know what I buy. That's a card. Just pink on the back. I don't know if they're supposed to be like collectible cards or... I've honestly never seen anything like it. It's pretty cool. That's going to stay with this DVD forever and ever and ever. Although we will put it to the side temporarily to take a look. It's in a book. And I'm really glad that this is something that allows, because Amazon is just such a convenient way to get everything shipped with a bit more of a reliable shipping. But I'm glad when I can sink money into Crunchyroll / Right Stuff, keep other sources that probably y'all care more about, so, hopefully they're getting enough more money from me that it's convenient for you, blah, blah, blah. I'm rambling. Here's this week's physical anime collection update. Let's hope I can go through this stuff kind of quick, although I know I never do. Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant, Episode 3. Very fresh in my mind because I really just watched it a little bit ago. I guess I was kind of curious just because it felt like there was a little bit more that it's interesting stuff that it's doing. And I feel like at the end of each episode, it's setting up the next episode for me. Well, I guess it might be kind of interesting, curious to see what it's going to do. And so episode 3 I thought was curious and interesting. And I think episode 4 was set up. I think one of the things I'm aware of with all the romance anime stuff is if there's the interaction, cute moment stuff, and it's leaning too heavily on being mostly that, I don't think I'll actually care too much for them. And this show has a bit of that, but it feels like it's doing an interesting take on some of the stuff. I'm curious to see what it keeps doing. So episode 3, I'd say, so doing a good job of being interesting, eyebrow raising, interesting. Maybe not necessarily interesting story, but just an interesting approach to all the stuff. So, off to a good first 3 episodes, I would say. Probably a decent 3-episode anime. It feels like you probably have a good feeling for if you're going to enjoy this show or not by that. No Longer Allowed in Another World, episode 3. Some strange things about this episode, some interesting things revealed. It's a bit of a mix. Once again, the fundamental premise of the show is good, but I think it ends at episode 3 not really resolving what it was in the middle of doing. So I think to a certain extent it feels like it might not pass the 3-episode test because this may be a show that requires 4 episodes. I'm not sure that they've shirked on stuff, but it's really kind of hard to tell for certain. I've got certain feelings, and I'm hoping certain things don't happen, but I've got feelings on certain things, so I guess we'll find out. And there could be interesting story buried underneath story going on here. Definitely curious about some of the stuff. Would help if I could remember certain names of certain things that were in there, but yeah, interesting enough. Strongest Magician in the Demon Lord's Army. Episode 5. Okay stuff, I guess. I suppose it revealed something that's sort of like okay. It just sort of is. If it wasn't the only episode or the only anime I'm still watching on Wednesday, there would be a chance that I wouldn't feel tempted to keep watching it, but I guess probably I still will. Failure Frame, episode 4. I remember enjoying the episode. Just kind of entertaining stuff happening, I suppose. Yeah, character interactions are entertaining enough. I guess if there was any problem I had with this episode, it was probably that it was leaning a little bit. It felt like it was leaning a little bit initially more on the classmates. I'm like, I don't care about those asshats. Oh, I also watched that and I completely forgot to note it. So I'll have to get that out in a little bit. Next up, I Parry Everything, episode 4. Once again, the show kind of leaning very heavily on people aren't very clearly communicating at all. It's entertaining enough stuff. Maybe a bit slow-paced. Not too slow, but maybe something that could make people, I guess, anxious. Next up, Senpais and Otonoko, episode 4. Like I said, I'm kind of curious to keep watching this because I'm interested to see what the character's friends... I guess the main characters support secondary, other... I don't know. I don't know what to call them. I'm curious to see how that dynamic is going, and I do feel like there's some interesting developments in it. It's interesting points that's like, yeah, I guess I kind of feel convinced about this show. That's, I'd say, a potentially good twist. I'm interested to see what it does with it. So, it's kind of staying interesting, I would say. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Season 3, Episode 64. Okay, I guess we got to meet the Tengu and information about the Tengu, and it's some more standard slime world building stuff, I would say. Misfit of Demon King Academy, Season 2, Episode 24 finally aired, and I felt like it was satisfying. I think I have some trouble tracking what the show's doing or trying to do. It just does seem to be off the hilt, but something felt very season finale about this, and it was fine. So, I guess an okay into Season 2 at least. Maybe good. Hard to say. I mean, I felt entertained at least. Quality Assurance in Another World, Episode 4. Okay stuff, I guess that... I guess there's a bit of an issue with it where there's some stuff that feels like it should be more emotionally heavy than it actually feels. At least to me. But I don't think it's clicking as much, and I think it's because the show's neglecting to do certain things.
And I'm not sure if I can place that. It's not bad, but it is something where it's like, it's continuing with its story, and it's kind of nice that it's doing that into something to watch. But I guess it's just something holding it back from greatness. Nothing necessarily bad. Dungeon People, episode 4. Yeah, entertaining enough stuff. I guess, yeah, I think it's Dungeon People just kind of pleasant to watch, I think. You know, I don't think it's the greatest thing to write home about. There's a lot of stuff this season that don't seem as good as like the past season or 2 or something like that. But, you know, at a minimum, you know, a lot of this stuff is still nice. Dungeon People is definitely nice. Bye Bye Earth, episode 3. Again, I somehow like this story compared to other things that feel like they have a similar feel to them. And I mentioned the one, the Giant Vars, last time, and it's like, yeah, it's not like it feels like the same story, the same world, or anything like that, but there's definitely a kind of similar feeling to the otherworldliness, possibly. Maybe a sort of aesthetic in terms of technology levels and stuff like that, but not necessarily anywhere near the same in terms of lore or character designs or anything like that. But I'm enjoying Bye Bye Earth a bit more than that one. But I have to admit, episode 3 felt like it was a little bit all over the place. Maybe not all over the place. It just felt like scattered, I guess. Like, this episode ends and is the main character Nomad about to travel now? I think so. I'm a little bit confused if I just don't remember that people were calling her Girl of Reason in the previous episodes. Because, like, it felt like a bunch of characters, a half dozen characters, started calling her that. Not to her face, but just like, now everybody's talking about her. And interesting things happen, even if it felt thematically scattered. But, yeah, that could make it a potentially weak show. I don't know. I'll probably continue trying to watch it. Dahlia and Bloom, episode 4. I mean, interesting follow-up stuff from the previous thing. I guess if there's a problem with this series, it's like, with this episode, like I said, it seems to be getting slow to get started with the fundamental premise. I'm not even sure if it's done that. It at least got past the point where it's finished the stuff that lead up to the description, maybe, or maybe it's still kind of doing some of that, which could mean that the first half of the series is just setting up for that sort of stuff. And some of the problem I have with this isn't killer, but it does feel convenient for the main character, and some of that isn't necessarily bad. But I think the problem is, it feels like we're not really being given a chance for our main character to shine. She's shown a little bit here, and a little bit in, I think, all the episodes. But, like, for this episode, if I were to say, if I were to try to give a subtitle to this, it wouldn't be Crafting a Fresh Start with Magical Tools. It would be Crafting a Fresh Start because my dad left me an awesome inheritance that I didn't know about, kind of. And I don't mean like a monetary inheritance, but rather, she still seems to be drifting and getting lucky a little bit because of the way things were set up with her dad. Kind of. And again, it's just kind of, I want to see this main character be interesting and awesome. But, you know, it's okay. It's just, I guess, a bit slow. Not in a bad way, but just a little bit slow. Next up, Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, episode 4. I don't know. I think the complaints I've complained about before are still present, where it's done a lot to sour our opinions of a lot of the characters, and I don't know that it's doing a whole lot to really get them back. Now, this could be the kind of show where if that's the sort of thing that you got from this, then maybe, you know, the whole series would be refreshing, maybe? I don't know. Stuff. Shoshimin episode 4 was delayed, as far as I could tell. Elusive Samurai episode 4. Let's see. The unfortunate thing about this episode is it didn't continue on to episode 5. I think, you know, I kind of begin these episodes saying, okay, every episode has managed to be very interesting up to this point. But is episode 4 finally going to drop the ball? And it's like, okay, I'm not sure that they had as much of an animation budget, but they still had quite a budget, and the guy's eyes. There's a lot of eyes things in this episode, and it's actually very amusing to watch. Good stuff. So overall, I'd say a good episode 4. Plus-sized elf episode 4. You know, I think it's introducing more overweight fantasy archetypes. You know, I think it's not like delaying the current ones. It's still doing stuff with a lot of the current ones. So it's being entertaining enough. I was just trying to remember that thing it did in this episode, and if that was something that I was missing and not thinking about. But, you know, overall, you know, it's something kind of nice to not care too much about. You know, I don't think the fetishes that it's about are necessarily my thing, but sometimes it's just like, kind of pleasant to have on the background from a monkey neuron stimulation thing, I guess. But also not thinking about it too much. Good ice cream, you know, length of time to eat some ice cream. Good ice cream show. Why does nobody remember me in this world? Episode 3. Wait a second. Okay, my comments about No Longer Allowed in Another World episode 3 was actually about why does nobody remember me in this world episode 3. What did I even say? Because now I have to go back. No Longer Allowed in Another World episode 3. What even happened in that episode? Okay, I guess we got some more insight into otherworldlers and their presence in that world, and it should be interesting because our main character has an interesting presence and mannerisms. So I'm definitely interested to see where episode 4 is going to go. Whereas, like I said, why does nobody remember me in this world? Episode 3. Strange stuff, and I'm a little bit worried about where it may be going with certain stuff. It might not be bad, but I guess we'll have to see. Makes it maybe a not sure episode 3. And so, No Longer Allowed in Another World, how does it shape up episode 3? I think if you like the main character's mannerisms, it seems off to a good start. Not sure what else. Okay, well, that was an interesting mix-up. I didn't even catch it until Saturday, because I'm at the Saturday part of my list. Macaine Too Many Losing Heroines, episode 3. I think I just really like the way all these characters are interacting. It's been a great first 3 episodes, so I've been liking it. And it's not going overboard with the small interaction. Heart jumped, because it's, I think, slightly leaning more on the comedy part of the romantic part than the romantic part, but not actually necessarily being outright funny, just kind of being, I think the conversations of the characters have been interesting. And I mentioned the heart jump thing, and I should mention Senpai's and Otonoko episode 4. I almost felt like it was starting to do a little bit too much of that, but it gave us more than just that, so that, okay, yeah, interesting enough. That's why that one, I think I'm planning to keep going. And Macaine, I'm probably going to keep going. Atri, episode 3. This one's really hard to tell. The titular character, I like her. I enjoy her. She's fun. I got really soured on the new characters they introduced in this episode. 2 of the 3 kids are like, fuck you little shits. And while I know it's supposed to have a reason, it's still irritating. And then there was Ryu. And it's like, yeah, fuck you, asshole. He's like, I can understand some of these people being soured by certain things, but he's just being a dick about it. And feels like maybe he's placing blame in the wrong sorts of places. Yeah, gotta blame people. Like, he's not very strongly doing it, but it's just sort of like, I don't know, they all sour me, and I don't really know what this show's planning to do long-term in terms of the whole thing, because episode 3 set up some stuff, and it could be interesting. And again, I'm kind of curious about some of it, but yeah, it's okay. Journey Through Another World, Raising Kids While Adventuring, episode 5. Let's see. Dun, dun. I think it's okay. It just kind of goes. I think it's setting up the next thing to do, the next place to go. The stinger at the end is like, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of intriguing and I want to see more. But mostly I want to see a crater where people used to be standing. But I'm pretty sure you're supposed to have that opinion in it. I think the show is going to do something along those lines. Not necessarily that they get some comeuppance, but rather I kind of suspect the community will be an important part of the next episode. But I guess we'll have to see. Wistoria, episode 4 apparently got delayed, although I did see that the first episode was dubbed, so it's getting dubbed. Good for people who watch stuff dubbed. And then, let's see, Osan Newbie Adventurer, episode 5. Okay, I guess. Our main character getting some interesting stuff, and a lot of the focus being another character that's sort of related to the main character. Not exactly related, thematically related to the main character. But unfortunately, I sort of feel like this episode is a little too hard leaning on people other than the titular character doing what the titular character, and the titular character not doing their stuff. I mean, he did some of it, so it wasn't completely void of stuff, but some of that stuff missing. Spice and Wolf, episode 18. This stuff continuing. This stuff sort of stresses me out, and it's a sort of thing where, as cute as Holo can be, she's just too high maintenance, man. She's just too high maintenance. But I guess it's interesting enough setup, and it's doing stuff. And yes, I am still talking because I forgot. Oh yes, I also watched One Piece Season 13 Voyage 8 with my Friday friend. And it's pretty much like a lot of the arc. I guess I don't know if I want to say the name of the arc or not. Maybe I should, just because some of y'all may be saying, which one's Season 13? Because probably my season numbering is different from everybody else's, because mine is what Funimation did, and Funimation partially inherited what 4Kids was doing, and you know, their stuff was just bucking fonkers. But overall, so the Big Mom arc, or the first one if there's been more than one, there's a lot of interesting things that happened in it throughout the entire arc, and including in this volume. I think the main problem is it just seems to take time to get to that stuff, and some of it feels like it kind of exhausts you. Maybe especially if you're... Actually, I think it would be worse if I was watching one episode at a time as they came out, because to a certain degree I wouldn't be expecting anything from the show at all, and then maybe we get little breadcrumbs every now and then, but I probably would go crazy if I didn't have binge watching for chunks of it in order to, I guess, get some payoff spending time on it. Maybe it'd be more accurate to say cordoning off some time for it. But overall, I'd say a lot of interesting things happened, a lot of touching things happened. Probably not the best of One Piece, but still pretty great, I would say. And the main thing I didn't like about the end of this is I think this is actually the end of the season, because the last episode, the first half of it was just like, wait, this is just Luffy's backstory all over again. And I don't know if this is the third or the fourth or maybe even the fifth time that we've seen it. I'm pretty sure we even saw it one time when it was 4x3 letterboxed with a background into 16x9. But it was only the first half of it, and then the last half of it's finally like, okay, cool. They gave us something new that I felt was maybe actual world building. Is that the right way to say it? Maybe. I don't know. But overall, you know, I guess it was nice to watch it. Now my Friday friend is out for a little bit again, and then we'll have a whole bunch of other dub stuff to catch up on, so that'll be a thing. So, outside of that, anything else? Dead by Daylight. So, Dead by Daylight released 2v8 mode, and if there's one word to describe it, it's either crazy or chaotic. But it could be either, because they could both mean the same thing as long as you understand the general direction I'm describing. And it pretty much is. I began with going only Survivor because there's a huge Survivor incentive, because there's just not enough survivors, and I can respect that. But eventually I reached a point where not only did I do all the Survivor challenges, but I also filled in Survivor challenges that I was missing on the current tome. Would there be anything else I would need to do? I don't know. Until I eventually reached a point where Killer. And playing as Killer, the queues are definitely long. Although the first time I did it, it was 15 to 20 minute queues. And then every time after that, I was actually playing with a friend that's really new to the game. And, it was kind of fun. So, is there anything interesting to really talk about? So, one of the reasons I didn't want to play Killer is mostly because normally when I'm playing, I'm at some level cheering for the other team, but when I'm on a team with other people, I can't sabotage the game. I mean, I could, but I just can't do it. I queued up as a survivor, so I'm not just going to give this match to the Killer. I need to try my best for my allies, and I make up for it by giving the Killer a chance to decide whether or not to kill me a whole lot. With 2v8 mode, I didn't make that choice as much because there's a lot more stuff, just a lot more chaos. It's harder for me to keep track of absolutely everything. I think it's harder for everybody to keep track of everything. And a lot of that could be that, I think I remember something about, if you had people going into a house and a chimpanzee was watching, they begin losing count of how many people are in that house. If I remember right, it was 7, and I wondered if that could be a thing for us, except I think we have better fallback stuff, so we can actually better keep track than a chimpanzee could. But I do wonder if there's something like that, where in this case, since there's nobody going in and out of houses, instead you have 9 things to keep track of, and you just can't as Killer or as Survivor. So that's why it's crazy chaotic, it feels like. Maybe an 8-man Swift, it doesn't have as much of a problem, if they're on comms and super coordinating and stuff like that. But I don't know. Still, blah, 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 all that stuff. When I'm playing as Survivor in the normal mode, I can keep track of the 3 survivors and the 1 killer fairly well. Maybe not perfectly, but well enough that I have a good overall game sense, and I think nobody has a good overall game sense. Well, there's some people that probably have that. But if I'm going to queue up as a Killer in this mode, I need to respect the fact that I queued up as Killer, and the other person probably queued up as Killer, and we'll just kill. So it was only when I was with my friend that I was maybe going a little bit easier, and it's like, yeah. Should we let this person go? Yeah, let's let this person go. Not that we didn't have a Let a Survivor Live thing with the 2 randos I played with, but it's just more natural to coordinate. Who cares if we kill anybody? Well, of course we care. We care once we're both at the end of the tome, and the last killer thing is sacrifice survivors. In which case, I wouldn't exactly say that my friend who's very new to the game was dragging us down. My ability to really loot people is limited as well. And so we had a lot more good people playing, and so I think between the 2 of us, we just weren't getting that many kills, and so we ended up playing to guarantee some kills, which is unfortunate to survivors because it's not necessarily the most fun thing, but it pretty much means, normally that means tunneling, and I actually wouldn't tunnel to do this, but I am okay with the concept of camping, especially in an end game. And in particular, I was focusing on because when you down somebody and you send them to the cage, they get teleported to the other side of the map and they could very easily be rescued. If in the in-game chat or in the in-game collapse, you want to guarantee a kill, instead you have to guard a slugged survivor. If they know their way to the exit, they can pressure you and force you to send them to a cage where maybe they get rescued anyways. But if they don't, then they kind of get lost on the map. Maybe they'll bleed out. Hopefully other people run out. People still go in to try to get the rescue. But the unfortunate thing is my goal was never to kill that one specific person. It was needed to make sure at least one kill happened so that we can make tone progress. And the truth of the matter is I only really cared about that once we were both on there. When I was on there and my friend was still catching up to it, I didn't care that much. But then once he was there, it's like, alright, I have to put my game knowledge into devious mode to do some stuff that I would rather not do. But the survivors aren't sitting there offering us kills or anything like that. And it makes sense, you know? Especially since if they escape, that's like, I think that's 5,000 blood points in and of itself, and since it's times 5, that's 25,000 blood points for escaping. You might as well be escaping with a white mirror, a white glyph mirror, because I think those are like 20,000 or something like that. And yeah, I can understand that and I can respect that. So that's something I don't like about the mode, and so if I have the choice if I'm going to play, but I haven't had the energy to play, I'll go back to Survivor to help with those Survivor queues and stuff like that. I guess the thing that hasn't driven me there is I don't need the blood points. But, you know, it's all stuff. It's stuff. But it's overall a fun mode, a good mode. I think great, you know, lots of people playing. You know, I've got a Twitch streamer on over there. That's why I can't focus on the camera. Well, that and exhaustion, but, you know, 2v8. I think Behavior did a pretty good job. And if you're curious how I played with the randos when I was playing more seriously, in my first match I was playing as Billy because I'm like, it feels like there's maybe not as many Billies. I think maybe there's more Billies now. But I don't know. I kind of felt like he wasn't quite there. There was probably more Wraiths and Huntresses. And Trapper, because there's just more Trappers. I guess I just didn't want to play as Nurse. I had a better game mind of those of how I would play as Billy. I would be a support Billy, and my goal would be to run around the map, get cheeky hits in, mostly just interrupt survivors and prevent them from doing generators as much as I could. So, across the map, and then my ally was a Huntress. Of course it was a Huntress, because if you're not choosing any of those other 4, you're going to get paired up with a Huntress, 100%, right? And so pretty much my goal there was to just put enough pressure on all the generators around the big map that whatever the Huntress was doing, mostly on her own, would do. And, you know, when we happen to be next to each other, definitely 100% help her with the chase. Help her down somebody and then go disrupt another generator. And that seemed to work out pretty well, but I can't help but think that maybe more organized groups could have taken advantage of me better, looped me better, things like that. I had a TTV who commented and said, man, you wiped the floor with us, and yeah, must have been that Huntress more than me, because while I did play good interference, I think that Huntress was playing even better, keeping people cycling through unhooks, maybe. My second match I was Trapper, because you have to play once as Trapper. And that time it's like, okay, well, Trapper is a good zone killer, so what I'm going to do is just choose 1/3 of the map and set up traps there, and if I manage to go out and grab more traps and bring them in, I will, but my goal is to absolutely prevent survivors from being able to make a foothold in there, and as they work on stuff on the other side of the map and drift closer, eventually they find themselves pressured and unable to escape. And so that was the idea and the mindset, and I'd say it actually worked out pretty well. I agree with a Reddit post that was saying that 2v8 mode actually fixes a lot of issues with Trapper, because of course I had people who were really good at looping and some people who were disabling traps, but they weren't able to work on generators in my area. And I think that's the important thing, because eventually as more survivors started coming there, they started experiencing getting hits from me, downs from me, because you know they were trying to escape that Huntress, but they were in the Trapper zone at that point, stepping into traps all the time. You know, the pressure eventually caught up with them. And usually the reason why Trapper is considered a fairly weak killer, it isn't because, oh, traps are... It's because if you get in the Trapper's mind and you know where the traps are, especially if you can call them out or disable them, the Trapper just becomes an M1 killer who can't really do anything else. He can't really stop loops, and then it basically means that even though he conceptually has his own, or maybe he set up a billion traps, the people might have called him out, he might not snowball properly, and he won't be able to both chase and, maintain his own, right? They kind of all fall apart. But yeah, in 2v8 mode, I was able to sit there and maintain that zone and guarantee that none of those generators got done. Even though some of the others got done, they eventually found themselves between a trapper and a huntress. And I was able to keep going, and eventually I reached a point where I figured out, oh yeah, probably hatches have spawned, so I should look for and close some hatches. And here's the interesting part of that story. I then noticed a hatchet kind of land close to me. And I kind of looked to say, oh, the hunters must be chasing one of the last few people. Oh wait, there's only one person alive and one person hooked. I actually didn't realize there was still one person hooked. But then another hatchet came directly to me, and I'm like, that huntress is trying to get my attention. So I go to her, and she's standing next to a crouching Yoichi, and it's like, yeah, I agree. I nod my head and abandon my zone and go look for hatches. I was told the game with, yeah, you want to let this person live. I'm okay with that. And I guess we would just have to be very careful if he had stepped in any of my traps. But that's why I looked for hatches. Well, I circled around the entire map a couple of times until I finally found them closer to the center. But, I let him away from my traps so that, there you go. Now, if instead he wanted to finish the remaining generators, I actually would have been okay with that. I was just, I kind of figured that was the Huntresses and Yoichi's moments. And so me as the kind of support killer for the Huntress was like, yeah, sure, your game. Let me help find you a hatch for this Yoichi. And if he wants to do more, I'm okay with that. So, that was kind of nice and pleasant. So overall, there's been neat things about this. Beyond that, though, we'll have to see if I have the energy to play. We'll have to see if I have the energy to play. Alright, let's finally wrap this up. Y'all, have a nice week.